Welcome to part 2 of the Alapin course for 1200 and under players. We're going to continue evaluating the following line. In the last lesson, we considered the possibility of black trading in the center, the most popular move by far being played 4 out of 5 times in the position. If you haven't watched that yet, that is a good place to start. In this video, we will consider the next most popular move, played about 8% of the time. E6. This move simultaneously defends the c5 pawn by opening up the bishop and adds some control to the d5 square where we're trying to place our pawn. However, thanks to our e4 pawn support, we can still push d5, attacking the knight. Black is more or less forced to trade in the center. We find ourselves in a very similar position to the last lesson, plus some extra pawns. The knight is very limited in options. It can't go to e7 without facing a deadly pawn push. In queen check, it must choose between a retreat to the edge of the board or the best move going to e5. While the computer evaluates the position as even, the database has white with a winning record of 61% after the move queen to e2, which again is not even the computer's recommended move, but the trickiest moves to deal with often aren't. White threatens the move f4 to capture the pinned knight. If black plays anything other than queen to e7, the piece will be lost. So in good preparation, let's assume black finds the best move so we can prepare for the hardest lines. But in all honesty, black finds this move less than 1 in 5 times in this position. Black has successfully defended his knight and broken the pin. We must immediately change gears from attacking the knight to developing. Playing f4 here will just result in a trade of queens, which doesn't really benefit either side. Let's just keep the queens on the board to keep the game alive and develop a piece. Similar to the previous lesson, we will play bishop to e3. The position has calmed down and play will continue to revolve around the center. The d5 pawn has become somewhat of a target, so black attacks it. Attempting to defend the pawn is awkward and doesn't work well, so we simply continue developing and give it up. Here I will recommend the strange but surprisingly common move in the Alapin, knight to a3. Quite often c3 is occupied already and not available for our knight. So knight to a3 is the somewhat awkward alternative. In many lines, the knight will try to move to b5 to threaten knight to c7. In this case, we prepare to castle long to defend the d-pawn. If black wants the material, he will need to take it now. We castle anyways, since we are long ways from being able to castle kingside. And we just want to prioritize quick development. The leaves a likely trade open, which is okay for us since it opens the light diagonal for the bishop. But the game is losing speed. Black offers a trade of queens, but we opt to keep our queen on the board in a strong position, restricting black's development and preparing knight to b5. The game is roughly equal, but white seems to have better chances since black is fairly stuck. Again, this line is the worst-case scenario for white, and likely black will slip up somewhere along the way, maybe losing a knight. Real quick, let's consider the option for black to ignore the central pawn tension and play the immediate knight to e5. Now, queen to e2 is not possible for us. However, with how vulnerable the knight is and how close the position currently is, the immediate f4 is quite dangerous for black, forcing black's knight to retreat a second time. And now we have time to play the winning move d6, completely restricting black's pieces from developing and claiming as much space as possible for ourselves. Black can't do much about it either. He can try attacking our pawn, but we can simply lock it in and black can't do anything. Let's return to where we started. Black has a couple more common options here. Let's take a look at d6, a weak move because it fails to prevent our d5 push. This allows a simple attack on black's knight, which will be very difficult to place. If the knight goes to e5, we simply push f4 and chase the knight around again. Believe it or not, black's best move is to retreat. You may see another option, which has a fun refutation. Knight to a5 fails to the pawn push b4. The knight has officially run out of safe squares. Black will be losing the knight. Let's say black finds the best move and retreats the knight. We should take advantage of black's lack of development by getting as far ahead in development as possible. Among other moves, Bishop to d3 is a good start to developing defending e4. In anticipation of knight to f6, we continue to get our pieces out. Black can attempt to break down our central structure, but we can again ignore it. If black gets greedy with a pawn capture, we have the cheeky check to reveal an attack on the knight. Check black blocks, and the knight is ours. Okay, let's take a look at one last uncommon but strong move. While under 1,200 players play this move 2% of the time here, masters play it 1 in 4 games. The move is the center pawn strike, d5, which is surprisingly strong. This move prevents us from our idea of pushing d5 and creates chaos in the center. To keep the line simple, I recommend the move pawn takes d5. This is an easy line to remember because black's queen is forced to recapture here, making the line predictable and one we can prepare for. Notice the large amount of pressure on d4 now. Relieving the pressure with d takes c4 is not recommended due to the potential queen trade. So let's reinforce the pawn while getting a piece out. Black has 2 main options here we will look at. First is to trade in the center. We recapture with the pawn to vacate the c3 square, allowing the knight to come into the attack. Almost no matter what black plays, we respond with our knight. This attack can only be met with bishop to b4. A pin if black wants to stay in the game. We can renew our threat by unpinning the knight. A trade will likely happen, and black has some tricks like e4, but we just find a safe square and things have calmed down. We have a slight advantage with the open position and our bishop pair. Let's look at black's other option. Instead of taking in the center, black can maintain the tension and try to remove a defender of d4 with bishop to g4. In this case, we finally have to yield our d-pawn by trading it off to avoid further problems. Black has the option to take back or capture our queen, taking our castling rights but leaving us up a pawn. Either way, we have a slight advantage with more advanced positioning. The game may continue something like this. That concludes this lesson. We have gone over everything in this position that you need to know to get started. Data shows a 52% win rate to 44% losing at the under 1200 level in this position. And after this video, hopefully that goes up in your favor. The main ideas are to take advantage of black's too quick knight, pushing d5, and then potentially f4, dealing with any center breaks black makes along the way. Stay tuned for more lessons. Thank you.